It was quite a challenge to move to London, start a new life, and at the same time going back to being a student, especially because most of my fellow students were quite a lot younger than me. Most of them still were living at home, and they had a quite different outlook on life compared to me. But I was also lucky that there was a handful of non-UK students who kind of were in the same position as me. And if it had not been for them, I'm not sure that I would actually have pulled through the course, because we used each other a lot to talk about the similar difficulties that we were going through, not necessarily with the studying, but also life in general, and also just reassuring each other that we would actually be able to pull through the course. My tutors were really amazing. They were very inspiring and very supportive. I think they looked at me as a very strong, able-minded person, being able to pull through the course without their help. But I still went to speak to them a lot about my coursework to reassure myself that I was on the right track. Because, you know, when you're studying a subject which is all about words in a language that's not your first, that's quite difficult. So I used them a lot to make sure that I was on the right track. And also, being able to access the facilities that I needed when I needed them was a great help, because I live quite far away from the university. And when I first arrived, I didn't have all the computer access and everything else that I needed. So being able to go to the library whenever I needed, and also, you know, in between lectures, all the extra time that I had to actually put it to good use. Although many of my friends, they were trying to convince me to go to the student bar instead, you know, and spend the time there, which is also making the use of the resources, but, you know, in a different way. And then there was, of course, the support on the home front as well, my partner, my boyfriend and my parents. I mean, I've always expected more of myself than most other people around me, I think. But they knew that, and they understood when to give me support and when just to basically let me be and get on with it. I think my biggest challenge was facing my own fear of failure. Like I said, I'm my own harshest critic, and I was very afraid I wouldn't be able to do as well on the course as I wanted to. I mean, if you don't get the language 100% or the culture, which are like two essential elements to journalism, which I was studying, it's quite difficult, and it meant that I had to work a lot harder than all the people around me. But I also found out that it's very helpful when you kind of formulate your own doubts and your own fears, and just put words to them basically, and say them out loud and ask the people around you. Because the worst that can happen is that they'll say, oh, you're right or you're wrong. And either way, it'll help you to get on with your work. And that really worked for me. Well, I mean, first year was very hardcore, because we were asked to write, well, half of all our work was academic, writing essays. 1,500 word essays every week, which was quite challenging. Very good way, though, to improve my writing and also my vocabulary. But I was very afraid, because I've never written an academic essay in my life, and I've never written an English academic essay in my life. So I felt I had to start all over, whereas, you know, my fellow students, they had done A-levels and so on, so I assumed they were a bit better prepared than me. So I would go to my tutor and I would talk, and they would say, yeah, but you got it right, you're doing this and this and this. And I said, okay, well, can you tell me a bit more, what am I doing right, what am I doing wrong? And they were very helpful with that, and they really helped me realise my own potential as well, because sometimes you do things and you're not quite sure how you did it, but everyone's praising you, and you sit there and you go, how did I do it? How can I actually keep doing it and improving it if I'm not sure what I'm doing? So that's why I went to them and spoke to them quite a lot. And I mean, not only my tutors, also my fellow students, because sometimes, you know, I would get something in one lesson which they wouldn't necessarily. It would also be like a cultural thing, talking about politics, or, you know, just, I don't know, cultural heritage, for example, things that British people would understand, and I wouldn't understand at all. I wouldn't find it funny, whereas they would all be laughing their heads off in class. Well, money was a big challenge, because I'd worked before I came over to study. I had had a really well-paid job, really, and I didn't have to worry about money. So going back to living on a student budget was very, very difficult. So I sat down and I researched all my options beforehand, and also during the first year, because you have to make changes. I did a budget. I applied for loads and loads of bursaries, both in England and internationally, in Denmark, Europe, so on. And I ended up having to take a bank loan to actually see me through. And although it wasn't easy, I don't think that people should use money as a deterrent for getting a good degree, because if you want to, there are options out there. You just have to go explore them, really. I think my main tip would be to don't be afraid to ask. I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but it actually works. Something happens when you start, formulating your doubts, like I said. You'll realise that you're probably a lot smarter than you think, and you might also, while you're asking the questions, all of a sudden realise a lot of stuff that wasn't that clear beforehand. It also comes to the money again. I didn't feel comfortable asking for bursaries. Why should why should strangers give me money to study? But it works. I mean, I was given bursaries, not many, but I got a few, and it was a great help. So don't be afraid to ask. And that also leads on to that, you can't do it alone. You need to have someone around you that will support you when the stress gets to you, because it will get to you at one point or another. I, for example, had to write a dissertation, and I found that extremely stressful, because if you're very self-critical, being left alone to write a major piece of work where you don't have anyone to talk to about it, that was very difficult. But even though my fellow students, they wouldn't know the subject, they would understand my stress, so I could speak to them and feel comfortable that they would understand me. So that really works. But I also think that you have to really believe in yourself. I mean, don't put yourself down, because you can do it if you put your mind to it. And you have to remember that everything that you learn on the course, whether it's academic or whether it's, the resources within yourself that you discover all of a sudden, that will be a great help for you in the rest of your life. Yeah, I went to student services because I wanted to know about bursaries and stuff like that. But because I'm an EU student, they couldn't really help me. So I felt, to be quite honest, I walked in and I got absolutely nothing. So I did feel quite low after that. But I thought, okay, they may not be able to help me, but I'm sure that other people can. So I just had to do some independent research and not, be put down by it. But no, I tried to use, the people that I was comfortable using, really. And that was the tutors that I saw in my daily life. I know they assign a tutor and they say you can speak to your tutor so and so many times, a term, you can, agree an appointment. I never really did it that way around. I would grab them whenever I could, after lectures, and say, hey, you mentioned that and that. How, do you mean this and this, or how could I make it fit into what I'm doing? And they always have 5 minutes if you ask them for it, to walk them back to their office or whatever, and that's really helpful. Don't be put off, by the very, how should I say, by the bureaucracy of everything. But again, you have to make it work to yourself, of course, as well, and to what you feel comfortable with.
Thanks very much. Thanks.